welcome again to the Expressway. I am Charles, show me the way, here with the BT Express, Billy Taylor, and we are live on alumnimedia.com. Check us out each and every week right here on alumnimedia.com, where you can watch all of our federal alumni take part in all types of different shows, home and garden, sports and entertainment. Whatever you want, we got it. We are all multi-talented, and you can check us out each and every week. Go to NFLalumnimedia.com and check out any NFL alumni that you want to hear from each and every week or each and every day. You can also check us out on YouTube. We are here every week on YouTube, and you can check us out there as well. BT, the most exciting story, or the most maybe unexciting story, is the signing of Jameis Winston. It depends on which camp you're in. How do you look upon Jameis Winston? As you know, the Giants needed a quarterback. Do you think they got the right guy?
Let's see. Hell no. Now, let me tell you my part, and you can come back because I'm going to open up your thought process.
Okay.
I've been watching him since Florida State, and I thought he had a chance for Florida State because, he's got a great personality. He really, has a chance to come in New York. And what I heard was that he has a lot of businesses, and if you're going into your 11th year of an NFL quarterback, you're a former starter, etc., you're rich. You got a lot of money, and he's got a lot of money. He got caught stealing some chicken, some kind of seafood, but when he was his first year, but he's got a great personality. My problem is that he's a gunslinger. And I don't think you can make it in New York as a gunslinger. Anytime you throw the ball in double coverage or triple coverage, that's not the thing to do. I watch him every time. When he played with Tampa Bay, he threw in triple coverage. That's why he had 30 interceptions. I've never even heard of 30 interceptions. I remember one year Eli had 21, and I thought that was an awful lot. And you bring in somebody with 30. And then he goes to New Orleans, same thing. He goes to Cleveland. He has 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. I don't think you can throw that many interceptions if you're a quarterback on a team because you're putting the team in a negative situation. I don't see him putting the Giants' defense, they go back on the field and they go back out there because Winston throws another interception. All the stats I have him, he's just barely above average quarterback. And I think the Giants were kind of desperate. I mean, for them, to let Joe Flacco and Russell Wilson and all them guys go and not have a chance and then put a contract offer onto Aaron Rodgers, they're desperate. So but what it does show me, Charles, is this upcoming draft, Shedeur Sanders may be the Giants' choice. I would choose him over anybody that I have seen so far other than Cam Ward, unless Aaron Rodgers came. But Jameis and Winston, I'm hoping that he's a good mentor to Shedeur Sanders. That's what I'm hoping for. Because, like I said, he's a good guy.
Yeah, and we'll definitely dive into the draft and what the draft prognosticators are saying. But when you talk about Jameis Winston and you look at his record as a starter, where he played at least 10 games in a year, the numbers don't pan out to show that he's very productive. When you look at his rookie season, right? He played 16 games. He threw 15 interceptions, 22 touchdowns, right? Almost just as many interceptions as he's thrown touchdowns. His completion rating was 58%. So let's jump to him 5 years in the league, which is at 2019. Played another 16 games, right? Only threw 1,000 more yards more than his rookie season. Averaged only a yard more. Threw 33 touchdowns, but he threw 30 interceptions. and this is his 5th year, not his rookie season, where you would expect, okay, he's learning the position. You expect some rookie moments where he makes rookie mistakes, but he threw 30 interceptions 5 years in the league. And then come back, been in the league. We talked about Sam Darnold, how he resurrected his career. We talked about Geno Smith, how he resurrected his career. Well, let's see what Jameis Winston does in year 11. In year 11, year 11, you look at, he's at Cleveland, plays 12 games.
That's year 10. Year 10.
Year 10. Throws 12 games, I mean, plays in 12 games, throws 12 interceptions, and only 13 touchdowns. You can't win at that clip where you throwing just as many interceptions as touchdowns. And so what worries me is that if Brian Daboll don't be the quarterback whisperer and can get him under control, we're going to see another example of Daniel Jones all over again. And that's what concerns me. But I think given the field, look, you got Joe Flacco, you got Russell Wilson. Who would frustrate you more, right? Someone with the talent of Jameis Winston that shows kind of moments of brilliance and then momentary collapse, or someone that looks like Aaron Rodgers, who's 50 years old, doesn't look like he should be out there and running around with no desire to make a winning play because he can't. And what would be more frustrating is to have a person like Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, who can't make the play because they're too old or their body can't make the play, or someone that's just maybe, and I hate to use this word, inept.
Well, Charles Way, man, I think I'm worried about you because Aaron Rodgers is way better than any of them. I mean, I watched him last year, the last 5 games this season. He looked like Aaron Rodgers of old, and I was hoping he would come here. But if you think about it, why would he come to a team that doesn't have a great offense, that doesn't have a great offensive line, and there's a lot of question marks. So I look for him to sign with Pittsburgh any minute now. But Jameis Winston, I watched him his whole career, and I thought, his rookie year, I think he'd get better. But his 5th year, the year they threw the 30 interceptions, they've had it in Tampa with him. They said, you can't put our defense in that kind of situation. 30 times throwing the ball over to the other team. And then the next year, they go to the Super Bowl with the same team, with Tom Brady, because Tom Brady didn't put the ball in the other opponent's hands. I think it's essential, Charles Wade, that the quarterback doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't fumble. He's got a bunch of fumbles in his career, too. His career completion percentage is only 61.2, which is about average. My problem is that he doesn't learn from his mistakes. If I've made a mistake even a week ago throwing an interception, I wouldn't throw that ball again. I try to practice on what I'm supposed to do. I take what the defense gives. He's a gunslinger, and the only thing that worries is that if they bring Shedeur Sanders in here, or a young quarterback, he's going to be the mentor, and he might be pretty good, but he's going to show what not to do. And I think that's going to hurt everybody because you don't want to turn the ball. And that's the problem with the Giants. They got to have a quarterback, CW. I mean, there's no other thing to do. If they don't get a quarterback, I don't see how Brian Daboll and Joe Shane can make it here. So this is really a lot of pressure on a lot of people.
Yeah, it definitely is. But when you look at the options right now, Joe Flacco, are you really so my question is, do you really move the needle with a Joe Flacco? Look at what he did with Indianapolis. Indianapolis has the same team that the Giants have today, right? So when you look at Joe Flacco, he doesn't move the needle. When you look at Russell Wilson, what he did with Pittsburgh, what he did with Pittsburgh last year, he didn't move the needle with Pittsburgh. That's why they were going back and forth between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, because they didn't have confidence that Russell Wilson could be the guy. So when you look at the players out there, there wasn't any good choice that was going to actually do what you're going to need to do to save your jobs, and which is to make the playoffs. I don't think you can make the playoff with Joe Flacco. I don't think you can make the playoffs with this Giants team with Russell Wilson. So what's the better option? Let's take a flyer on a guy that's still young, that still has his mobility, and hopefully I can be the quarterback whisperer like I was with Daniel Jones that first year, and make him a quarterback that we need until we find somebody that can really take over the position and be our franchise quarterback.
The Giants are in a tough situation because the owner, John Mara, said that he's giving them one more chance. A lot of fans thought they should have got rid of him. I agree with bringing him back because they had a great first year, and then Danny Jones kind of put them under the rock the second and third year. So I just think that that's a good move by keeping them. This is going to make it almost like an athlete. They got to step up big time if they want to keep their jobs. In order to keep their jobs, I would draft Shedeur Sanders as my quarterback, and then I guess if Winston's going to be the guy, let him play for a couple games and then get him out of there, because he's gonna make you mad by throwing the ball up for grabs. You're going to see him throwing the ball to Malik Neighbors in triple coverage and maybe have a chance to get him hurt. I don't like a quarterback who throws the ball, what I call hospital balls, where the safety in the corner can collide on the receivers. That's what Jameis and Winston, I saw him throw more hospital balls than anybody I've seen in the NFL in years, and that's the thing that scares me. The good thing is that they don't kill people, the defensive back and the wide receivers, like they used to back when I started playing. They put the new rules in. You can't hit anybody really, really hard when they come over the middle. So if it wasn't for that, Jameis Winston would have killed a couple of receivers. I'm trying to be optimistic, Charles, but every time I even think of anything about Jameis Winston, first thing that comes to mind is somebody throwing a lame duck up in the air and going for the other way, a pick six going the other way. And I just, I gotta hopefully, my only hope is that Brian Daboll can be the quarterback whisperer, as you say, that he worked with Danny Jones, but Danny Jones still doesn't have everything he needs to be a great quarterback, and I don't think he ever will.
Yeah, I agree with you, and like I said, you're hoping that that Brian Daboll can work with Jameis. You're hoping that Jameis Winston is more receptive. I don't see it. I hope, and I'm not. We're not in the organization. We're not in the locker room. We're not around him every day. Hopefully, they can create some maturity in his play. Like you said, leave some of that gunslinger stuff behind. Don't try to force passes in desperation. I sometimes when you look at Jameis Winston play, it's like he really doesn't care about the outcome. He just wants to see if he can make the big play, right? And so we can't have that. I think you got to lean on the running game a lot more than what you did last year. They need to go back to that pro style of offense like they did when Josh Allen had all those issues. They ran the ball more than they passed when he had all those issues, and that's why Brian Daboll became a good head coaching candidate, because he fixed Josh Allen. I don't know if he fixed Josh Allen because Josh Allen didn't throw the ball a lot. He ran the ball more than he threw the ball when he got in trouble, and that's what helped Josh Allen be the quarterback that he was when Brian Daboll was there. And I think hopefully he teaches Jameis Winston the same thing. Look, read the coverage. If you're getting two-man and you don't have any place to go, run the ball. You're very mobile. You can run. You may not be the greatest runner. You're a little bit older, but you can run the ball better than most. And so run the ball. And so I think that if they can create a plan and have him stick to it, and the question is, and the key question of the success of the Giants is, can Jameis Winston stay with the game plan, stay with what Brian Daboll is trying to get him to do? If he can stay within that game plan instead of go outside like he's done in Cleveland and Tampa Bay, I think we'll be okay, because we're going to talk about the draft next. I don't think right now, if you look at the team needs, and we've talked every week about this, Shedeur Sanders may not be available at the number 3 spot.
I sure hope he is, but my problem is that Jameis Winston is going into his 11th year. When is he going to learn? I mean, come on, 10 years as a player and you don't learn to not turn the ball over and put your defense at a disadvantage? When he went to New Orleans, they started him in New Orleans. He had a contract that was low on the scale, was $14 million when he went to New Orleans, but he threw the ball over from the moment he first started. And I just think that, can Brian Daboll teach a dog new tricks that has been doing this a long time? I complain because Justin Fields and Danny Jones are going into their 6th and 7th year and haven't gotten it. And Jameis Winston's in his 10th year. I don't think he'll ever be more than just a career backup. Now, give me some optimism. What you think he can do with the Giants offense if Brian Daboll turns him around? My problem is I just don't think, I don't think he can teach this new dog new tricks, because he's shown in the past. It's like when people tell you what they think and then they do it and you wonder why they said it. I mean, and the one thing I want to say too, and I know you saw it, He was at the NFL Super Bowl asking Saquon Barkley where he should go because he's a free agent quarterback, and Saquon said New York needs a quarterback, and I was trying to think, was that prepared or did they pre-plan that, because it looked too smooth to not be pre-planned, but I don't know if it was or not.
Yeah, I saw that too, and it's funny that it actually happened. Like I said, I think Brian Daboll, if anybody's going to get him to turn, and he's going to have to go back to crazy Brian Daboll to get in the Jameis Winston's world. Like how he was unfiltered on the sideline, he wasn't calm, he was getting in Daniel Jones' face. I think you need tough love to say, look, man, you've been in the league 10 years, going into your 11th year, and you're still doing the same thing. Something has to change because, look, you're only making $4 million now. Do you know if you're just a serviceable quarterback, you got a chance to make $8 million? Justin Fields is making $8 million a year.
No, he's going to 20 to the Jets. That's
$20 million a year.
2 years, $40 million.
Oh, so he's making so if you're just a serviceable, like if you reduce, get this, if you reduce your interceptions just by half, if you just reduce it by half, instead of making $4 million, which he's making the next 2 years, he could be making 20, 25, $30 million because of his name and his reputation. Because look, now he could be potentially a franchise quarterback just because he changed what people perceive of him. And so he has a chance to make a ton of money. And I think if he doesn't take advantage of it and see the landscape just on money alone, he's missing out on a great opportunity.
Well, Jameis Winston, to me, I think he wants to come to New York for business purposes. They say a lot of people realize what New York can do for you, and if he does perform, it's almost like when the year before Danny Jones made the playoffs, people said if he makes the playoffs, he deserves anything he gets. Then they signed him for $40 million, and people said that's too much. But he brought the Giants to the playoffs. If Jameis Winston can get to the Giants to the playoffs, he'll really get a big bite of the Big Apple. And that's what I look forward to seeing. Can Brian Daboll turn it around? My problem is that, you know, he's the same quarterback I watched for all these years. And if you just, you know, let the defense play the percentages and if something's not there, throw the ball away and come back again. If you do that, you have a chance to win because the Giants have helped out with their offensive line. I like what they're doing there. But Malik Neighbors coming back next year, he's going to be a better receiver than he did this year when he set the rookie record. So, there's a lot of plus in there, but none of the prognosticators predict the Giants to do anything. If we look at the whole NFC East, the Cowboys, Giants, Washington, Philadelphia, they picked the Giants last. So they can come out of nowhere and do something special like they did a couple years ago with Brian Daboll and Danny Jones. So, there's optimism here, but, to get the fans going, I've been listening to them. They don't have faith in JW, Jameis and Winston, and they don't think Brian Daboll can turn them around.
Yeah, I agree with that assessment, but you got to give him some credit for what he's done with the team that he's had. Like I said, I just think he needs to go back to what the reasons why he got his head coaching job. He got to go back to how he molded Buffalo, how he molded Josh Allen. He didn't really put the game in Josh Allen's hands, right? He put it in his legs, and he put it in the run game of that team. He had a great running back. I think the Giants with Tracy Jr. They have a good quality running back. They'll probably pick up another running back in the draft. He has the talent around him to be successful. And I think when you look at where they can be and what they can do, I think they can stay in games. I think this season will be reflective of his first year when he came to the Giants, where we're going to be surprised by some of the games that they win, and we're going to be excited by week 10 that they are in a position to make a playoff spot. And I think that's where we are today. Even though I'm not super confident in Jameis Winston, I'm going to have faith in Brian Daboll to do what he did with Daniel Jones his first year in the league and make this team a winning team.
Well, this is definitely a reclamation project because as soon as they announced that Jameis and Winston was there, the first thing I thought was how many turnovers he's going to have, how many times he's going to fumble the ball. He's really not that great of a runner. I watched him in New Orleans get hurt running the ball because, he's got a little bit of mobility and agility, but he's not really a good runner. He's not as good as Danny Jones is running the ball, but if he picks and chooses, sometimes when they play man coverage and the quarterback sees that down the field, he can pick and choose when to run because there's nobody. Once he gets past the line of scrimmage, he can get extra yards. So it's going to be interesting. But I want the Giants, of course, because it's been 10 out of 11 years they've had bad seasons. So it's time to turn this around. If they get Shedeur Sanders, I will feel much better about it. But if they don't get a quarterback, if they don't get the guy from Ole Miss, Eli Manning's old school, if they don't get him, I don't see how the Giants can save Brian Daboll's job.
You're talking about Paxton Dart from Ole Miss.
Paxton Dart.
Yeah, and speaking of the draft, I think when you look at all of the different mock drafts out there, I think, and you tell me if I'm wrong. And there's two scenarios, right? One scenario is that Shedeur Sanders will be there at number 3. And let me back it up. Everybody is saying that Cam Ward is the best quarterback in this year's draft, right? I think that's unanimous amongst all of the mock drafts that you see. Cam Ward is the number 1 quarterback that's going to be taken. The question is, where does he go? Does he go to Tennessee or does he go to Cleveland? I don't think Cleveland has or can afford not to pick a quarterback. So if Tennessee doesn't draft a quarterback, which I highly, highly, highly doubt they would pass on a quarterback. If Tennessee doesn't draft a quarterback, Cleveland will draft Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders will be there at number 3. But I highly doubt Tennessee. I don't think they trust Will Levis enough to not draft him. And I don't know if Travis Hunter, for the same reason we said, will Travis Hunter be the right pick for the Giants, does he add anything to their team right now? And it's going to be hard for me to see Tennessee pass up on Cam Ward. And if Tennessee doesn't pass up on Cam Ward, I know for a fact that Cleveland is going to pick not Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders.
What about Deshaun Watson in Cleveland? He had an Achilles tendon. He should be coming back.
Yeah.
You don't want to trust him at all? They're giving him.
You might just put him in Jameis Winston's category.
Well, see, this is my thing. I'm scared of Tennessee also because there's no way I would stay with the current quarterback they have because he looked pathetic at times last year when I watched him. So I looked for Cam Ward to go first. The question I have for you is that, Archie. They're talking about Archie Manning. Giants tanking for him or people doing that, but I don't think Archie Manning is coming out next year. Eli Manning and Peyton Manning stayed 5 years, and they didn't have to. Peyton could have come out after 4 years, still been the number 1 pick, but he chose to come back and make his game even better. Eli, same way, 5 years. This will be only Archie Manning's first year as a starter. There's no way that the Manning family would allow him just to go 1 year and then come out, even though he is the first-round draft choice. So what I'm thinking is that the Giants have got to step up big time. And the question I have for you is, you say the Mannings are talking about Archie and him coming up. Why don't they do that for Shedeur Sanders? He's from a coach's background, a Hall of Fame dad, has been almost like a gym rat. Comes early, stays late. Because they talk about him being almost conceited, he may go down in the draft. For me, if the Giants have an opportunity to get Shedeur Sanders, I would get him because I like him. I watched him. He went from 2 different organizations and brought them to a higher level of performance. Doubled his performance. Showed that he's accurate, can throw the ball on the run. He may not be as fast as some of the quarterbacks, but he's got a good arm. So why are they putting him down? I can't understand, Charles Wade.
I think that's just positioning. I think you want people, like we talked about in the past shows, teams want to put out negative news so that he drops in the draft so that they can get him. And so when you hear all these negative stories about Shedeur Sanders and he's not a top 3 quarterback, he should be further down in the draft. They're saying Paxton Dart may be a better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders because he has the measurables of one of those elite franchise quarterbacks. Paxton Dart fits the model. But when you look at Shedeur Sanders, what he did with the team in Colorado without an offensive line, you would have loved Daniel Jones to have the same numbers as Shedeur Sanders, given as much as he was beat up. So when you look at Shedeur Sanders, I just don't see how anybody in the top 2 could pass him up. The problem I have is if you're the Giants, and we don't have a lot of time, but we can wrap it up with this. If you're the Giants, right, and you see Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders off the board, and you're staring at Jameis Winston in your locker room, right? Are you going to reach for a quarterback at number 3, or are you going to try to better your team to create a nucleus around your team, right? Put it together an elite team, have an opportunity to put together an elite team, and then find your quarterback, i.e. maybe a trade, because everybody's looking to trade quarterbacks now. So you can get a quarterback via trade, or trade for number 1. Try to trade the 3 position for a good number 1 pick next year.
Well, see, I don't think that they can try to set things up for the Giants in the future when your job is on the line. You can't make those decisions down the line. You got to go and win today. In order for you to win today, I think you need to get – and I see what you're saying, because I can see both quarterbacks coming off the board and the Giants at the 3rd pick. But I don't think Travis Hunter is going to help the Giants. I mean, don't get me wrong, he probably will, but they already got great defensive backs. They signed Javon Holland, who's an outstanding addition to him, along with what they already have with the number 1 draft pick the year before as a defensive back. They have their defense is already improved, regardless of what you say. They've already gotten better from last year just through the talent that they've gotten. The problem is on offense. And see, what I would do if I was Brian Daboll is
Joe Shane.
Joe Shane, I would definitely try to get one of those top 2 quarterbacks. Should they trade up, and trade with somebody else to get it? I don't know how you do that with Tennessee and Cleveland both needing a quarterback. It's a tough situation for the Giants. Somebody is positioning themselves to do something. I don't know who it is, because I'm confused how they put down Shedeur Sanders, and we're going to see in years to come. I think he's going to be really a great addition to the NFL.
Yeah, I think the only other option is Paxton Dart for the Giants. But I honestly think that if you go with Paxton Dart, I think you can find a way for a team to come up to who wants Travis Sanders that's 4 or 5 or 6, and you can go up. There's a lot of talk that the Jets, who need a quarterback, who really don't trust Justin Fields, will want to grab Paxton Dart at number 7, right? So if I hear that, I would be a little bit nervous. So, but I would try to move down to see if I can get a Paxton Dart, because when you look at all of the top players, the top 5 players that they see in mock drafts, they're all in different order. But you got Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, even though he's injured, they saying he will be ready by the end of training camp, but he's injured, but he's a great talent. They're comparing him to Micah Parsons. So you got Abdul Carter. You got another DN. You really don't have anybody like that the Giants truly need. They don't have a monster D tackle like a Dexter Lawrence. If they had Dexter Lawrence at number 4, number 5 that was rated high, then I would go after him, because if you put 2 Dexter Lawrences in the inside, man, you're just like Philly. You're just like Philly when they had Brandon Graham and everybody else, and I can't name their D line, but they had those D linemen that they had. They didn't need to blitz a lot because the D linemen were putting pressure on them. But I don't think there is a D tackle in the draft that the Giants can get at number 4 or number 5 that would make me happy. So if Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward aren't there, the thing is, and this is what Joe Shane's responsibility is, Joe Shane's responsibility, yeah, you are to win today, but you are to set up the Giants for the future. That's what a GM's role is to have prolonged success. And to have prolonged success is, look, I can't find a quarterback that I want. I'm not going to reach. So I'm either build draft capital and get a guy that can help build this team to make it stronger. So when we do get that franchise quarterback, we're ready to go.
Final question to you, though. If it comes down to it and it's Brian Daboll and Joe Shane's opportunity to do something and they cannot do it, the bottom line is if they don't get a quarterback, Charles Way, I don't see them keeping the job because there's nobody out there. You know, if Jameis and Winston comes in and turns the ball over, Danny DeVito is not an object at all for me. So they got to get a quarterback. If they don't, I think that it's not going to be a good season.
Yeah, but and like I said, you only hope that Brian Daboll, if Jameis Winston is the only choice, then you just hoping that Brian Daboll can work with him enough to say, look, don't take chances, don't throw the ball, tuck it. If you don't see it open, tuck it and run. If it's 3rd and 35, don't just throw it up and say, oh well, it's as good as a punt. No, just tuck it and run, throw it away, we'll punt. Let's lean on our defense. Hopefully our defense can improve. I just wish our defense is more aggressive, especially since you don't have the type of talent that a Philly has that you only have to rush 4, right? That's not what the Giants are, and I think that's why I like Wink Martindale's defense as opposed to the new defensive coordinator's defense, because the new defense coordinator's defense is like a bend and don't break defense. But if you don't have a front four that can put pressure on the quarterback, it doesn't help your defensive backs because bend and don't break. You're going to break their backs because they gotta hold up in coverage for longer than they should have to.
Well, Charles, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. The draft is April 24th through the 26th or 27th, and all the stuff's going to come to the light. I still think the Giants need a quarterback in order to save their job.
We are here live just talking about the exciting news or not so exciting news, BT, of the signing of Russell Wilson. We just got finished talking on our podcast yesterday about the signing of Jameis Winston, and we both knew that Russell Wilson was still an option just to give them security blanket if they can't draft a quarterback in the draft. But where does this leave? My question to you is, now that they have Russell Wilson, where does this leave the Giants in the draft picking at number 3 if there's still a quarterback there, i.e. Shedeur Sanders?
Well, since everybody has a prognostication, I might as well throw mine in there. Number one, when they signed Jameis Winston for $8 million for 2 years, which is about $4 million a year, it's way below what a backup quarterback would get because Drew Lock last year got $5 million. So they knew when they signed him he was not going to be the starting quarterback. And I think that Russell Wilson, they kind of got in the bind where they kind of had to take him because if they don't, they're stuck. There's nobody else out there. Because if Rodgers hadn't come here, which he's probably not, they would have been stuck. But see, what I think now, and check it out, you just tell me if I'm crazy, but I'm just thinking because everything else is happening. If they got Russell Wilson as the starter and got Jameis Winston as a backup, and both of them can be mentors to Shedeur Sanders if they draft him at number 3. And what they're doing is protecting themselves because, you don't know what Tennessee and Cleveland are doing at number 1. If they both take a quarterback, the Giants have no other recourse but to stay with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. But that's just my thought process because if you do it the right way, Charles, a quarterback should stay on the bench for a little while his first year. Quarterbacks have been ruined. And the one I noticed is David Carr. He got drafted by the Houston Texans, and then he came to the Giants later on after he had been ruined by starting his rookie year. So your thought process?
I was hoping they would do this. I know there was rumors that Russell Wilson, even after Jameis Winston signed his contract, Russell Wilson was still an option. He was still thinking about signing with the Giants. And I think it's good because now it frees them up. As we were talking about in yesterday's podcast, it frees them up to not be locked in at drafting a quarterback at number 3 if the guy they want is not there. And so I believe, and we talked about this yesterday, Cam Ward is probably the number 1 quarterback taken in the NFL draft. He should go to Tennessee at number 1. he's definitely going to Cleveland at number 2. The wild card is, will Cleveland take Shedeur Sanders if Cam Ward is off the table? I say they probably do. I don't think they're going to run away, even though if you listen to a lot of the prognosticators lately, they've been mixed. They had been having mixed feelings on Shedeur as if he's a franchise quarterback. I think a lot of that is a lot of hate, and probably a lot of hate towards Deion Sanders, because if you look at all of the quarterbacks, if you look at C.J. Stroud, if you look at Bryce Young, you look at all of those guys, they can't be no worse than what Shedeur Sanders is doing. And as you look at, if you kind of compare what they did in college and what Shedeur did, they didn't do any better or they didn't do any worse than what Shedeur Sanders did with Colorado. So I don't know where all the bad talk or bad feelings or bad vibes people are getting for Shedeur is coming from, although it got to be hatred for Deion. But I like what they did because now it frees them up. So I don't know if Travis Hunter is the guy. I don't know if Abdul Carter is the guy. But I do know that if the guy they want is not there, i.e. Shedeur Sanders, they have an opportunity to trade him back to get draft capital for potentially setting themselves up for getting a better draft pick next year. And that's where Arch Manning comes in.
Well, see, okay. I don't believe that Archie Manning is going to come out after next year. And the reason, I mean, none of the Mannings, both of them could have come out after their 4th year in college and been a first-round draft choice. Peyton definitely. They stayed another year, and they don't need the money. They don't. All they need is experience. And I think the older Archie Manning, his dad, has told his sons that the more you play, the better you get. And both of them have done the same. I'm willing to bet you, Charles Wade, that Archie Manning does not come out no matter what kind of year he has next year. Because that would be only his first year starting in college football. He redshirted a year ago. He played a couple plays here. Now, as far as the Giants are concerned on this situation, if you think about it, I'm trying to look at the positive side. Russell Wilson could really help the Giants be respectable. If he comes in and doesn't make mistakes, takes what the defense gives, and allows them to get off early. When they went to the playoffs a couple of years ago, they won early against Tennessee in that first game of the season. They have to get off early here to gain momentum. And as far as Jameis and Winston, I think he's just there for show to look good in his uniform.
Well, I think if you believe what a lot of the people close to the Giants are saying, they're saying that there will be a true quarterback competition in that locker room. So Jameis Winston, truly, if you believe everyone, will get a shot to start if he does play better. And think about it. Russell Wilson didn't actually do a lot to win the number 1 quarterback spot from Justin Fields. If you look at how the competition went with Pittsburgh last year. So when you look at it, I mean, at least there will be a good competition. At least you're going to see a veteran quarterback playing in the preseason like we didn't see this year. When I said, how many times did I say they needed to play in the preseason so that we know what we're getting and what they're getting, and they didn't do that, and it showed how poorly they played this past season. But as I said, this frees them up. If Shedeur Sanders is off the board, it either allows them to trade down to get somebody that they truly need and truly build a team and build draft capital for the following year. Because think about it. Look at what New England has consistently done. They've traded picks to build draft capital for the right time and the right moment. If you look at the mock drafts, the top 4 players are Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. You don't need either one of those 2 guys, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. You could probably use another O-lineman if you wanted, but I'm telling you, if you can get a stone cold player, dog, as a D tackle to put somebody next to Dexter Lawrence, I think then you fortified the D line and you've made it a lot better, and you've helped your position for next year, because you may end up in the same position as next year. And if there's a quarterback that you want, you have more draft capital now to go get him.
And it seems like, if you think about it, the Giants are in a really good position, because they kind of have their starting quarterback. It depends on what happens in the draft if they get another quarterback, and if they don't, they have opportunities to go back further and get that defensive tackle, that mean dog that they need on defense. But already they've improved with Javon Holland coming in at safety and Adeller, I can't remember his name, at cornerback, shut down corner. They got competition at defense, and that's exactly what the Giants need. If Thibodeau and comes in and does his job and gets the Giants defense going, they could have a heck of a defense. Every time I'm on here, I talk about it comes down to the quarterback. Can Russell Wilson do the job, or can he mentor whoever they bring in here? I totally agree with you on Shedeur Sanders that somebody's got to be a hater, because I watch him in games. His accuracy is there, which is incredible for someone that young. His poise is there, and he's a gym rat. He's one of those guys who will never leave the field or the practice field or the weight room. He'll give you all he's got. He's been doing that his whole life since he was in Pop Warner, is the way I got it. And I think if Deion Sanders is such a great coach, why wouldn't his son be a great player if he's been learning the lessons that his dad has taught him?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, I think it sets them up to kind of free them up and not have to go and chase a quarterback at number 3. Now, because they have Russell Wilson, they're okay. They can probably draft a quarterback in the second round that may have an opportunity. And you can probably, like I said, what you want to do is you want to get as much draft capital as you can, especially if this year you don't get the quarterback you want. You have enough draft capital for next year to potentially go up and get the guy that you need next year.
Now check it out. If the Giants do get Shedeur Sanders and they have Russell Wilson and Jameis and Winston, where does that leave Danny DeVito? Because they're not going to keep 4 quarterbacks.
Well,
Danny DeVito is the one that kind of like is kind of like, it's kind of like he's a giant. And then Winston, if he throws interceptions in the preseason, you know that Brian Daboll going to get rid of him, because you turn the ball over like he usually does and hadn't improved. He's going into his 11th year, Charles Way, and if you don't have it by now, when are you going to get it?
Well, are you telling me you're going to keep Tommy DeVito when you can probably get rid of him and re-sign him tomorrow if you needed him? I think he's a great placeholder. You had to sign Tommy DeVito just because Giants love him, and at least he'll keep fans in the stands if someone were to get hurt, right? But like I said, it's only if they don't get a quarterback. You don't mind signing Tommy DeVito, but I just think he's a placeholder anyway, because if they do draft a quarterback, he's probably the odd man out, because you're not keeping 4 quarterbacks.
Well, it's very interesting now, because as we get within less than a month of the NFL draft, people are beginning to maneuver and see what's going on, because in the beginning I didn't think that Tennessee would get a quarterback, but when I looked at what they had, there's not even a question they're going after a quarterback, because they need one. And then as far as Cleveland concerned, they do have Deshaun Watson and that big contract that he has. And so I think that they're kind of tired of his game, and that's why I think that they're going to take one. It's going to leave the Giants in a unique situation. Should they get one of the top players, I definitely don't think they need Travis Hunter, Charles, because they already have somebody like that.
Exactly. And so exactly. So as I know, we got to wrap up here in a second, but as you said, you don't need Travis Hunter. I'm not crazy about getting Abdul Carter. I mean, he may be good to have, because Brian Young is probably on his last year of his contract. He can probably come in. He won't be ready. So that could be a possibility. Move back 1 or 2 spots, get Abdul Carter. You want to get as many talented guys as possible, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and he could probably help that defense out, especially if they're comparing him to Micah Parsons.
Well, before we go, we got about a minute and a half or so. Do you think Russell Wilson will help the Giants?
I think this is the best opportunity they have to have a respectable season. If Russell Wilson can actually get his body together so that he can stay healthy in an entire season, I think he gives them the best chance to be competitive and and if lightning strikes in a bottle, have a chance to even compete for a playoff spot. So I think it's a great pickup. He's a veteran quarterback that knows what he's doing, knows his way around the football field, is probably a good presence to have in the locker room, especially if they draft a quarterback, whether it's a Shedeur Sanders in the first round or Paxton Dart or someone else later in the second or third round.
Well, the positive thing as we ease on out of here, Charles, is that Mike Holmgren of the Steelers is not an offensive coach. Russ Wilson is coming here to an offensive guru. We're going to see if it makes a difference. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for today. We call it the Expressway. Quarterbacks are always a big reason. That's the big reason the Giants could do well because of their quarterback situation. So for Charles Way, I'm Billy Taylor. Have a nice evening. Thanks for joining us.
This is Alumni Media.